Hi everybody, this is Lisa Falcon G with Universal Hidden Insight and the Self Beyond. And I'm really excited to finally, sit down and do this video. I've wanted to do it for a while. It's something that I have talked to a lot of friends about. It's something that has just kind of been on my mind for a while. Some big stuff is happening, right? Anybody that's paying attention to the news, or maybe not paying attention to the news on purpose because it's just so upsetting at this point, this is kind of for you. Um, so I want to break this down, and I truly want to honor everything that's happening on all the levels that it's happening on. I'm going to try to be able to articulate articulate all the points that I want to say. I don't want to miss anything. Um, okay, so here is basically my take on all of this. And this kind of comes from both a very high level look at everything from the bigger picture standpoint, but also just a very practical level of this is what's really happening. So, okay, we're going to start third dimensionally. This is where we are. Um, and just as a side note, I've kind of started exploring the idea that perhaps the third dimension isn't really so much existing anymore, except for in our attachment to it and our attachment to this like physical dimension. And I know that that might go over the heads of a lot of people and maybe even lose me from getting people to continue to listen to this video. But stay, hang in there with me. I've got some good stuff to come here. Okay, so third dimensional level, really upsetting things are happening, right? There's Kavanaugh that was just confirmed, despite a huge, massive outcry. It was so upsetting. We're seeing people, demonstrators and protesters that were protesting peacefully, exercising their First Right Amendment, and being arrested, being detained. That to me is so atrocious, and that to me is the mark of any country that's moving towards or is actually living in right now like a fascist situation. I don't know what else to call it. I know a lot of people think that's a hot button word, but I mean, what else really do we call it? It is what it is right now, and this is looking a lot more like a police state, and it's a really scary situation. And when you have somebody like Kavanaugh that's so clearly historically fighting against all of these important causes, the environmental causes, social issues, setting us back with women's rights, reproductive rights, like all of these things that are on the table here right now. And this administration, and several times when I have kind of made comments about this current administration, people for some reason take that personally, and they say, well, what do you think was happening with all the other presidents, and what, you just wanted Hillary? And no, that's not what I'm saying. For me, it's not one or the other. I think that's really important to understand, and I'm very aware that there are two faces of the same coin. I'm very aware of the higher level shadow government, for lack of a better word, that we're kind of living under. I do still believe it makes a difference that we vote and things like that, and I don't think if it didn't make a difference that we voted, they wouldn't be doing such massive efforts to have so much voter suppression, especially affecting minority communities, all the indigenous people, that were just recently affected by this. It's just, it's crazy and it's disgusting. So on this third dimensional level, this is what we're dealing with. Environmental issues, EPA protections, environmental protections are being rolled back. Women's productive rights, all kinds of social issues are really being set back, decades, if not longer. So this is really a trying time for a lot of us. But here is my take on it, and this has kind of given me comfort, and this has kind of given me solace. And again, I truly hope to acknowledge and validate these important issues and what's happening in our physical world that we're still kind of connected to and living within. Um, so that's what's happening third dimensionally, but on a higher level, dimensional level, if you can appreciate all of these things that are coming up, and I think that these are issues that have been present throughout humanity's history, and we're now having to really look at these things. We're really having to, they're coming up, they're coming out into the light, and we're really having to deal with what's happening. So here we have, kind of gone down, and it's interesting too, because anybody who's familiar with the chakra system, it seems to be almost connected with the chakras, because we've dealt with things like religion, we've dealt with ideological differences, so that might be like your crown chakra, like going into your third eye chakra, and collectively we really had to look at our personal biases about these things, our personal dogmas. All of these things have kind of come up to review and look at how we really feel about these things, and if we really believe that somebody that believes differently is wrong or bad or evil, or all of these kind of important things to really recognize are not necessarily true, that we've held on to culturally and socially for many thousands of years. We've moved into the throat chakra, our voice, being able to speak our truth. That's become basically a crime. People being put in prison for speaking out, for protesting. I definitely think we moved into heart chakra issues with, compassion, empathy, caring, people being arrested because feeding homeless people, that's, craziness. We've moved into solar plexus, power struggles, like, are we empowered or are we disempowered? We've really had to look at that, the ways in which we've been disempowered, and maybe really reflect on where our true power really stands. And I think that's so powerful. So, and we've moved into issues to look at racism. We've had to examine our own preconceptions, our own social illiteracies, our own ignorances. And that stuff has always been present, but now it's unavoidable. We have to look at these things. And now we've moved into the base root chakra area with women's issues, with sexual issues, with sexual abuses. And that's one of the most difficult things. And I think that is because humanity as a species has carried these deep-seated wounds for thousands and thousands of years. This has been always the greatest trespass upon a person that could be made, to have any kind of a sexual assault. And it's gone on throughout history, and now we are really having to collectively look at it and how we really feel about that and examine it. And it's unavoidable that at this point we move towards either healing or some kind of hostility. We can't deny these things any longer. So I think on a higher level, as awful as all of this is, it really is bubbling up a lot of things to the surface. So I mentioned a little earlier about the fact that I've kind of been playing with the idea that maybe the third dimension doesn't actually exist quite as the way that it used to. So, the third dimension is the very physical, hard, dense dimension that we're so familiar with. And that's definitely, perpetuated through our culture, through the media, through all of these things that we're kind of fed. And it's like a mass hypnosis that continues to be just bolstered by everything that's going on around us, is kind of perpetuating that status quo. Like, this is the way to see the world. This is the filter through which we must view it. But there's many levels, and there's a lot of people in spiritual communities of all faiths that do believe that the earth is going to move up to like a higher vibration, that there's going to be like a higher level available. And I know myself in my own life, I've felt very much that my vibration has been rising, that there's something within me that is just kind of starting to, obviously I see through a lot of these illusions, and I think a lot more people are starting to do that. So over the past few years, people have believed that there's like a new earth kind of coming down, that there's like a fifth dimensional or higher existence that we can start to vibrate higher into. So I'm trying to like look around and figure out how so many people could be so at odds, how so many people could, like, on one side, not that there's sides, but, there's large groups of people who really truly just clearly see what's so seemingly obviously wrong with what's happening with this administration, with the government, with these big corporate interests, the environmental and social issues that it's creating. And then there is a very clear and present group of people who does not feel that way, who really truly believes that no, this is good, like really good things are happening, and they just seem to be in a different reality. So I'm having a theory about this, and who knows if this is right. We could never prove this, but maybe you'll go here with me. So what I've decided that I think is that maybe there is kind of that higher level layer that many people are coming up into. And there is still this, like, for lack of a better word, because it's not really like higher or lower, but we're going to call it lower, a lower level reality, the one that we had been living in for the past, centuries, all these past centuries. So that's vibrating down here, maybe vibrating a little less, and this one's vibrating a little bit higher, and maybe they're kind of overlapping, they're integrated within one another, but there is two different realities. So I think maybe something like that is kind of happening. And I don't know how to solve that as a paradox, except to say that it's important to be aware of these real pragmatic issues that are happening, and to do everything we can to use our voice, and to continue to resist these things that are moving us in the wrong direction, away from our wholeness, dividing us, keeping us from love, keeping us from healing. And it's so important that we do our healing work and raise our vibration in every way that we can. And that might mean meditating, that might mean prayer, that might mean different things for different people. For me, it's definitely meant being very conscious of my words, being very conscious of my food that I intake into my system, being vegan, taking in plant-based things, drinking pure water, things like this, being very conscious of what I'm taking in as far as information. So I want to be aware of multiple points of view, because you can't just sit there and live in your own echo chamber and just hear what you want to hear all day long. It's important to understand there's multiple, dimensions to different points of views. But we have to be conscious what we're feeding our mind with, what we're feeding our spirit with. So, if we're watching Fox News all day, we're probably going to be fearful. We're going to be, paranoid. We're going to not really have a good handle on what's really happening. So all of those things are very important. And I just wanted to share that with everybody today. Hope that might give a little bit of hope to understand that while these horrible things are happening, there might still be a very high level purpose to it. And we can still use this as a chance and as an opportunity, just like any horrible thing that happens in our life. We can use this as an opportunity to raise ourselves up and to heal. If you haven't done so already, I strongly urge you to please check out this book. Everything that I could really have to say on a lot of these big subjects to help somebody to raise themselves up and to heal, to connect from within, and the tools that we already have within ourselves, I put in this book, and I did a great outline on some of these bigger issues as well towards the end. So this is on Amazon right now. A third of all the proceeds does go to charity. And I just hope you all have a wonderful rest of your weekend, a wonderful day, and take good care.